The summer of 1914 saw Europe on the brink, its cities bustling with life, unaware of the storm about to break. The continent was a patchwork of empires and kingdoms, each with its own ambitions and fears simmering beneath the surface. Alliances and ambitions were ready to ignite. Decades of treaties and secret agreements had woven a tangled web, binding nations together in a fragile peace that could shatter at any moment. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo was the spark that set the continent ablaze, turning a regional crisis into a global catastrophe. Germany launched the Schlieffen Plan, a rapid strike through neutral Belgium into France, hoping to end the war before it truly began and avoid a prolonged conflict on two fronts. German armies surged forward with astonishing speed, pushing Allied forces back and sending Paris into panic. The thunder of artillery and the tramp of boots echoed across the countryside. The French government fled the capital. The city braced for siege as fear and uncertainty gripped its people. It seemed the German plan was working. Victory by Christmas looked certain, and German confidence soared with each passing day. Allied troops retreated under relentless pressure, exhausted and demoralized, their lines stretched thin and spirits wavering as the enemy advanced. Amid chaos, French General Joffre searched desperately for a place to make a stand, determined to halt the German advance before it was too late. The Marne River, just east of Paris, became that line in the sand, a final barrier between the city and the invading armies. A critical German error exposed their right flank as they swung east of Paris, leaving them vulnerable to a counterattack they never expected. Sensing opportunity, the Allies prepared to fight at the Marne, digging in and readying themselves for a desperate stand that would decide the fate of the nation. Here, the fate of France, and perhaps the entire war, would be decided. As anxious eyes watched and hopes hung in the balance, the stage was set for a battle that would change history, marking the moment when the world held its breath and the future of Europe teetered on a knife's edge. The Battle of the Marne began on September 6, 1914, marking a pivotal moment in the opening weeks of World War I. The fate of Europe seemed to hang in the balance as armies mobilized for a confrontation that would shape the course of the conflict. The fighting stretched over 100 miles of French countryside, transforming peaceful fields and villages into a vast chaotic battlefield. German armies, exhausted and overextended after weeks of rapid advance, now faced a determined coalition of French and British forces united in desperation. The Germans believed victory was within reach, Paris was nearly theirs, and the dream of a swift triumph seemed tantalizingly close. For France, this was a fight for survival. For Germany, the culmination of their master plan to end the war quickly and decisively. The stakes could not have been higher. Every decision, every order, carried the weight of nations and millions of lives. General Joffre, under immense pressure, ordered a bold counterattack against the exposed German flank, hoping to turn the tide. The French 6th Army struck first, surging forward with determination despite exhaustion and uncertainty. Meanwhile, the British and French 5th Army targeted the vulnerable gap between German forces, seeking to exploit any weakness. Success depended on exhausted Allied troops finding the strength for one last push, summoning courage from the depths of fatigue and fear. The outcome would determine the fate of nations, deciding whether Europe would fall to German domination or resist. The Allies gambled everything on this moment, risking all in a desperate bid to halt the German advance. Across the world, civilians and leaders alike held their breath, waiting to see if history would be rewritten on the banks of the Marne. On September 6, 1914, the Allies launched a daring and unexpected assault along the Marne River, catching the German forces off guard and shifting the momentum of the war. The French 6th Army struck hard at von Kluck's exposed right flank, forcing the Germans to rapidly pivot their lines. This sudden maneuver widened a critical gap between the German 1st and 2nd Armies, creating a vulnerable breach in their advance. Into this opening surged the British Expeditionary Force and the French 5th Army. Advancing quickly, they encountered surprisingly little resistance, pressing deeper into German-held territory and threatening to encircle the enemy. German command was thrown into confusion as their carefully laid plans began to unravel. The sudden Allied advance disrupted communications and coordination, leaving German units isolated and unsure of their next move. Amid the chaos, Parisian taxis famously ferried thousands of French troops to the front lines. This extraordinary effort not only reinforced the Allied position, but also became a powerful symbol of French determination and ingenuity, boosting morale across the nation. The story of the taxis of the Marne quickly spread, inspiring both soldiers and civilians. It became a lasting symbol of national unity and the collective will to defend Paris at all costs. With their flank collapsing and the threat of encirclement growing, German High Command had no choice but to order a general retreat on September 9th, pulling back from their positions near Paris. The German advance on Paris was decisively halted. The ambitious Schlieffen Plan, which had aimed for a swift victory, had failed in the face of Allied resilience and quick thinking. For the first time since the war began, Allied soldiers witnessed German troops in retreat, a sight that brought hope and renewed determination to the weary defenders. The miracle of the Marne was complete. Against all odds, the Allies had turned the tide of battle and saved Paris from occupation. The Allies' victory was celebrated throughout France. Paris was saved and the threat of German occupation was lifted, at least for now. But the war's character was about to change forever. The armies dug in, and the Western Front would soon become a landscape of trenches, marking the beginning of a long and grueling conflict. For soldiers, the Marne was chaos. Old tactics met new, deadly technology. Machine guns and artillery made the battlefield a nightmare of noise and death. Exhausted, hungry and sick, men fought through fear and confusion. Many were civilians turned soldiers, unprepared for the horrors they faced. The psychological toll was immense. The constant shelling left deep scars. As the Germans retreated, both sides dug in for protection. Trenches appeared, signs of a new static kind of warfare. The war of movement was over. The Western Front was about to become a graveyard of millions. The Marne was a stunning Allied victory. Paris was saved, and German hopes for a quick win were shattered. The Schlieffen Plan was dead. Germany now faced a long, grinding war on two fronts. Both sides dug trenches from Switzerland to the North Sea, ending the war of movement. The Marne marked a turning point. The dream of a short war was gone. Now, victory would depend on endurance, industry, and sacrifice. The First Battle of the Marne shaped the course of the 20th century. Had the Allies lost, Europe's future would have been unrecognizable. Instead, the world braced for years of brutal, unending conflict.